So is it okay to pitch clothes and accessories, however nice they might be, from the White House? Senior counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, being hit with bipartisan criticism this morning for seeming to be trying to sell Ivanka Trump's clothes during an interview. And now we're getting new information about what happened between Conway and President Trump after those comments.
That's exactly right. A senior administration official telling us that Conway apologized to the president for doing this and that he backed her up, quote, completely. Just this morning, she tweeted, POTUS supports me. Here to discuss, David Gergen, former presidential advisor to Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Clinton. Tamara Keith, White House correspondent for NPR. And Laura Coates, CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor. Let me begin with you, David Gergen, because I was schooled, I suppose, by Jeffrey Lord in the last hour, who told me that I am wrong and that the American people don't care about this at all and that we shouldn't be talking about this. But apparently Republicans and Democrats in Congress on the House Oversight Committee think it is important, and they think that Kellyanne Conway violated a part of the law as it relates to ethics and government employees. How do you see it?
It's a story, isn't it? Listen, there is a clear ethics rule that if you're working in the government, especially in the White House, you cannot hawk the goods commercially of somebody else. And here she did it on behalf of the president's daughter. And I think it's pretty clear there's a violation. The question is, what do you do about it? What's significant is that Jason Chaffetz, who is the chair of the House Oversight Committee and a big Republican, a rising star in the party, is sufficiently concerned that he has sent a letter, co-authored a letter to the Justice Department asking, for action over there, whether it's going to be an investigation or what have you. And I do think the American people care about not Ivanka per se. Everybody wants to see her succeed in life, but they care about conflicts of interest, and that whether the first family overall is putting itself in a position to gain financially from the president's days in office, because we now have. We have Ivanka, we have Kellyanne Conway hawking Ivanka's goods. We have President Trump himself tweeting and attacking Nordstrom for the way they've handled her brands. We talked about this yesterday. We have stories about Melania, the First Lady, a lawsuit filed on her behalf saying that an article in a particular publication harmed her chances of making basically a bonanza with her lines of goods while the president is in office. You take all that together, and whether they're violations or not violations of rules, I think most Americans agree that it's tacky.
And Tamara, now we have this added intrigue. Our reporting that Kellyanne Conway apologized to the president. He was apparently incredibly gracious, stood by here. Apparently also not at all happy with how Sean Spicer, the press secretary, responded to the whole thing when he said that Kellyanne Conway had been counseled about those comments. It almost seems like internally, Sean Spicer gets hit with everything.
This White House is a leaky sieve, and often Sean Spicer is the target of some of the criticism. The interesting thing about that letter that the Oversight Committee, both Chaffetz and Elijah Cummings, sent to the Office of Government Ethics, they asked the Office of Government Ethics to look into this because the ethics violations are handled by the agencies where the person works. Well, the head of the agency or office where Kellyanne Conway works is the President of the United States, and that letter said that the president has an inherent conflict of interest, which is why they're asking the Office of Government Ethics to consider what the disciplinary action, if there is any, should be because of that inherent conflict of interest that Conway was promoting the goods of the president's daughter.
All right, switching gears here to a huge story this morning, and Laura, to you as the legal expert on the panel, General Michael Flynn, the National Security Advisor, according to the Washington Post and New York Times, lied, according to their reporting, about calls that he had with the Russian ambassador before the Trump administration officially took over at the White House. If he did have these calls about potentially lifting sanctions against Russia, that would violate the Logan Act. Now, the interesting thing here, though, is the Logan Act is very, very old. It's from the end of the 1700s, but it has not been applied before.
That's true. And in fact, timing is what's the most important considering the Logan Act. The fact that you're talking about him doing it before he was in official capacity on behalf of the United States is very key. The Logan Act essentially says, listen, we do not want private citizens dipping their fingers into foreign policy or trying to undermine the administration in any way. But largely it's been used as a political weapon. In fact, no one's ever been convicted of the Logan Act, mostly because it's unclear as to whether or not or who can give the authority to act on behalf of the United States. But it's been wielded many times in the recent past. I mean, Pelosi was accused of using it when she was dealing with al-Assad. You had Senator Cotton being accused of violating the Logan Act when he wrote the letter to Iran about the nuclear uranium compound issues. And you have, Boehner being accused of violating it as well, talking about Netanyahu, inviting him to speak. So this is a political weapon that's often used, and it's rarely ever used as an actual criminal act. And in fact, we'd have no direction as to how to actually enforce this law. So it's a little bit murky.
Yeah, and it may not be the law that's the issue here, David Gergen. It's the statements that were made and by whom they were made. Vice President Pence, when he was vice president-elect, he went on CBS defending Michael Flynn. I think we have that sound here, a shorter version of that. Can we play that? All right, I don't think we have that. Mike Pence went on CBS, essentially, David Gergen, and said, oh, wait, here we go.
But what I can confirm, having spoken to him about it, is that those conversations that happened to occur around the time that the United States took action to expel diplomats had nothing whatsoever to do with those sanctions.
And now both the Post and the Times are reporting flat out, David, that they did discuss sanctions. So Vice President-elect Pence
John,
said what he said. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, John. I seriously doubt that there's going to be any legal action against Ivanka or to Kellyanne Conway, especially Kellyanne Conway, or against Michael Flynn under the Logan Act. But these kind of episodes do matter. In particular, if the National Security Advisor has publicly represented himself for having conversations that he misdescribes, that really hurts him with the public and with the general respect he commands outside. But very importantly here, if he lied to the vice president, that is a huge issue within the White House. This White House has already reportedly had, and there are various stories, Politico has got a big one out today, about the tensions and the distrust that within the White House already. To have a National Security Advisor lie to the vice president,
the White House is
I just
backing
can't,
up the vice president
emphasize how serious that is.
The White House is backing up the vice president this morning, saying his comments were based on his conversations with General Flynn. No support of Flynn in that.
No support of Flynn in that, and Flynn was already under a cloud. So this, we'll see. This is going to be a interesting story to watch. Michael Pence, by nature, I think, is a forgiving person, but still, your National Security Advisor doesn't lie to your vice president.
David Gergen, Tamara Keefe, Laura Coates, thanks all for being with us. Appreciate it, guys.
We appreciate it, guys. Have a great weekend.